have the right level of profile in Facebook to get your attention to make sure that they get the proper resources.
Gentleman's time's expired. Chair recognizes the gentleman from West Virginia, Mr. McKinley, for 4 minutes.
Thank you for coming, Mr. Zuckerberg. I've got a yes or no question, if you could give that. Should Facebook enable illegal online pharmacies to sell drugs such as oxycodone, Percocet, Vicodin without a prescription?
Congressman, I believe that's against our policies.
Yes or no? Do you think you should be able to do that?
No, of course not.
There are 35,000 online pharmacies operating, and according to the FDA, they think there may be 96% of them are operating illegally. And on November of last year, CNBC had an article say that you were surprised by the breadth of this opioid crisis. And as you can see from these photographs, opioids are still available on your site, that they're without a prescription on your site. So it contradicts just what you just said just a minute ago. And it went on last week. FDA Commissioner Scott Gottlieb has testified before our office, said that the internet firms simply aren't taking practical steps to find and remove these illegal opioid listings. And he specifically mentioned Facebook. Are you aware of that? His quote?
Congressman, I'm not specifically aware of his quote, but I heard that he said something. And let me just speak to this for a second.
If I could, no, we don't. So in your opening statement, and I appreciated your remark, you said it's not enough to give people a voice. We have to make sure that people aren't using it, Facebook, to hurt people. Now, America's in the midst of one of the worst epidemics that it's ever experienced with this drug epidemic. And it's all across this country. It's not just in West Virginia. But your platform is still being used to circumvent the law and allow people to buy highly addictive drugs without a prescription. You know, with all due respect, Facebook is actually enabling an illegal activity, and in so doing, you are hurting people. Would you agree with that statement?
Congressman, I think that there are a number of areas of content that we need to do a better job policing on our service. Today, the primary way that content regulation works here and review is that people can share what they want openly on the service, and then if someone sees an issue, they can flag it to us, and then we will review it. Over time, we're shifting to a mode
you can
where
find out, Mr. Zuckerberg, you know which pharmacies are operating legally and illegally, but you're still continuing to take that, allow that to be posted on Facebook, and allow people to get this scourge, this ravaging this country, is being enabled because of Facebook. So my question to you as we close on this, you said before you were going to take down those ads, but you didn't do it. We've got statement after statement about things. You're going to take those down within days, and they haven't gone down. That, what I just put up, was just from yesterday. It's still up. So my question to you is, when are you going to take down these posts that are done with illegal digital pharmacies? When are you going to take them down?
Congressman, right now, when people report the posts to us, we will take them down and have people review.
Why do they have to, if you've got all these 20,000 people, you know that they're up there. Where's your requirement? Where's your accountability to allow this to be occurring, this ravaging this country?
Congressman, I agree that this is a terrible issue, and respectfully, when there are tens of billions or 100 billion pieces of content that are shared every day, even 20,000 people reviewing it can't look at everything. What we need to do is build more AI tools that can proactively find that content.
You've been said before you were going to take them down, and you haven't. And
the gentleman's time has expired. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Vermont, Mr. Welch, for 4 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Zuckerberg, you acknowledged candidly that Facebook made a mistake. You did an analysis of how it happened. You promised action. We're at the point where the action will speak much louder than the words. But, Mr. Chairman, this Congress has made a mistake. this event that happened, whether it was Facebook or some other platform, was foreseeable and inevitable. And we did nothing about it. Congresswoman Blackburn and I had a group, a privacy working group, 6 meetings with many of the industry players. There was an acknowledgement on both sides that privacy was not being protected, that there was no reasonable safeguard for Americans' privacy, but there was an inability to come to a conclusion. So we also have an obligation. And in an effort to move forward, Mr. Zuckerberg, I've framed some questions that hopefully will allow a reasonable yes or no answer to see if there's some common ground to achieve the goal you assert you have, and we certainly have, the obligation to protect the privacy of American consumers. First, do you believe that consumers have a right to know and control what personal data companies collect from them?
Yes.
Do you believe that consumers have a right to control how and with whom their personal information is shared with third parties?
Congressman, yes, of course.
And do you believe that consumers have a right to secure and responsible handling of their personal data?
Yes, Congressman.
And do you believe that consumers should be able to easily place limits on the personal data that companies collect and retain?
Congressman, that seems like a reasonable principle to me.
Okay. And do you believe that consumers should be able to correct or delete inaccurate personal data that companies have obtained?
Congressman, that one might be more interesting to debate. Because
well, then let's get back to us with specifics on that. I think they do have that right. Do you believe that consumers should be able to have their data deleted immediately from Facebook when they stop using the service?
Yes, Congressman, and they have that ability.
Good. And do you believe that the Federal Trade Commission or another properly resourced governmental agency with rulemaking authority should be able to determine on a regular basis what is considered personal information to provide certainty for consumers and companies? What information needs to be protected most tightly?
Congressman, I certainly think that that's an area where we should discuss some sort of oversight.
There's not a big discussion here. Who gets the final say? Is it the private market, companies like yours, or is there a governmental function here that defines what privacy is?
Congressman, I think that this is an area where some regulation makes sense. You proposed a very specific thing, and I think the details matter.
Let me ask you this. I've appreciated your testimony. Will you work with this committee to help put us to help the U.S. put in place our own privacy regulation that prioritizes consumers' right to privacy, just as the EU has done?
Congressman, yes, I'll make sure that we work with you to flesh this out.
All right. And you have indicated that Facebook has not always protected the privacy of their users throughout the company's history. And it seems, though, from your answers, that you agree that consumers do have a fundamental right to privacy that empowers them to control the collection, the use, the sharing of their personal information online. And Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, privacy cannot be based just on company policies, whether it's Facebook or any other company. There has to be a willingness on the part of this Congress to step up and provide policy protection to the privacy rights of every American consumer. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Illinois, Mr. Kinzinger,
Hey,
for
Chairman,
4 minutes.
Mr. Zuckerberg, thank you for being here. Given the global reach of Facebook, I'd like to know about the company's policies and practices with respect to information sharing with foreign governments, if you don't mind. What personal data does Facebook make available from Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp to Russian state agencies, including intel and security agencies?
Congressman, in general, the way we approach data and law enforcement is if we have knowledge of imminent harm, physical harm that might happen to someone, we try to reach out to local law enforcement in order to help prevent that. I think that is less built out around the world. It is more built out in the U.S. So, for example, on that example, we've built out specific programs in the U.S. We have 3,000 people that are focused on making sure that if we detect that someone is at risk of harming themselves, we can get them the appropriate help.
What about Russian intel agencies?
The second category of information is when there is a valid legal process served to us. In general, If a government puts something out that's overly broad, we're going to fight back on it. We view our duty as protecting people's information, but if there is valid service, especially in the U.S., we will, of course, work with law enforcement. In general, we are not in the business of providing a lot of information to the Russian government.
Do you know, is this data only from accounts located in or operated from these individual countries, or does it include Facebook's global data?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah, is the data only from the accounts located in or operated from those countries in terms of Russia or anything, or does it include Facebook's global data?
Well, Congressman, in general, countries do not have jurisdiction to have any valid legal reason to request data of someone outside of their country. But
well, where is it stored? Where's the data? I mean, do they have access to data only
we don't store any data in Russia.
Okay, so it's the global data.
Yeah.
So let me just ask, you mentioned a few times that we're in an arms race with Russia, but is it one-sided if Facebook, as an American-based company, is given the opposition everything it needs in terms of, where it's storing its data?
Sorry, Congressman, could you repeat that?
So